We're at our garage and test facility. Let's see what we're rolling out today. I'm told it's something pretty nice and expensive. A Mercedes-Benz GLE, but not just any GLE. A GLE53 AMG. That means it costs a lot more money. So what's the difference between a standard GLE and AMG? Well, the base GLE has a 2-liter 255 horsepower engine, or you can upgrade to a 3.0 362 horsepower motor. On this AMG, we get a 3-liter inline 6, 429 horsepower. Hooked to an all-wheel drive system, rated 18 to 22 mpg. The weight there is more. How about a V8 with 482 horsepower, or another V8 with 603 horsepower? That's the one we wanted, but you can't really find those. They're very scarce. There's also an adjustable air suspension hooked up to these Yokohama 275/50 ZR20 tires and wheels. We'll talk about this a little bit later in the video. As you can imagine, with the AMG package, the base price of $55 grand raises up quite a bit. Let's take a close look at all the goodies we're getting. $750 for the emerald green paint. Yeah, it's green, not black. Napa leather, $29.90. Oak wood trim, $160. Going right down the line here, driver assistance package with all the electric nannies, also known as safety nannies. Almost $2 grand. We can do without that, but try to find one without it. All right. There you go. Just under 83 grand. Wow. Before we step into the cabin, I want to point out this outside bodywork that collects a lot of road debris, dust, snow, mud. And this, combined with wide rocker panels, means when you step out, you're going to get this on your pants. Don't know why the Germans do this, but you might want to keep a rag handy to wipe this down every now and then. And here's the AMG emblem to remind yourself what you bought. Now let's step in the cabin. Let's look at the gauge cluster. Here's the common setup. The speedometer on the left, the tachometer on the right with the press of a button. Now I have a clock on the left and the boost gauge on the right. And here yet another one, the miles per gallon on the left, tire pressures on the right, and the odometer on the middle. There are many other combinations, I can't show them all. And a very large infotainment screen. A lot of things to choose from here. If you like navigation, certainly the screen is large enough for that. And here are the main controls for the info screen. Here. Volume control, on and off switch for the radio. Dynamic button for sand, trails, slippery, or individual modes. Oh, got a Sport and Sport Plus too. How about that? And down here, traction control button, a dial for raising or lowering the suspension, control for the shocks, and a separate control for the suspension comfort right here. Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, and 4 central air outlets for the climate control with very simple buttons. Controls on the steering wheel, very easy to use once you know how to do so. If you don't, you're going to be very confused. It takes time. And more on the right side. The secret is you don't push things, you just run your finger up and down. Like so. And the glove box, lots of room in there. I'm told this is real wood, I'm not really sure, but slide that, you get your cup holders. And the sun visors do slide back and forth to block out the sun from the side windows. Some vehicles don't do that, you'd be surprised. And paddle shifters on the steering wheel where they belong. Can be reached if you want a straight line, mild curves, or strong curves, which is better than putting them on the steering column like the Italians do, which is kind of stupid because they can only be reached when going in a straight line. They belong on the steering wheel. The Germans get it right. And the controls for the power seats are located on the door, which is actually a good place to put them. Maybe that's where they should all be. And as we do in all our videos, we want to check and make sure there's a spare tire, and yes, there is. For street only, you don't want to take this in the dirt. And like we do in all our videos, we're going to take the headlights out in the dark and see how they perform. That's going to be at the part 3 of the video. Coming up part 2, we're going to do some driving. Before I do our ride comfort test, just want to point out these are giant tires, far bigger than what you really need. They do this more for looks than anything. And these giant tires combined with the tire pressures recommended. In a normal vehicle, tire pressures of 32 to 38 pounds would be the rule, but here they want you to go up to as much as 44 pounds. That's an awful lot of air. Doesn't do much for the ride quality, as we'll find out. And it seems to be a trade on AMG modified vehicles. I've had some cars where they wanted over 54 pounds. Go figure. I guess that's what you need when you're cruising around 180 miles per hour, which we're not going to be doing. We're going to take some mild speed humps at 15 miles per hour in the comfort mode. See how the suspension performs on impact. Not too bad considering these giant tires and the tire pressures. Bump number 2. Bump number 3. And the nasty one. Not too bad. Let's do that again, but this time I'll have everything in the sport mode. Just see how stiff it gets. Bump number 1. Yeah, felt that a bit. Here comes number 2. Number 3. And the big one. Definitely stiffer. But the body structure is very stiff, so even though I heard it and slightly felt it, I didn't feel too much in the cabin. This is a very solid body structure. I give Mercedes credit for that. Regardless of the mode you put this vehicle in, the steering doesn't have much feel or feedback, but it's quick enough. If you're used to driving a truck, you won't be complaining. This vehicle has a start-stop feature. It means it turns the engine off when you come to a stoplight or stop sign to save fuel. Then you tap the gas, it starts up again. Ordinarily, I can't stand these systems. They drive me nuts, but Mercedes did a pretty good job on this. It's so quiet, you don't even notice it's on or off. In fact, I didn't even know I had one operating until I saw the tachometer drop down to 0. It's a pretty good system. Have to admit, no complaints. Even though the suspension and tires did pretty good on the speed humps, when you get on the pavement, and the pavement's not that good, you hear every bump, creak, and rattle coming up through the suspension and tires. You don't feel it as much, but you definitely hear it. I guess we'll just have to blame the high tire pressures that AMG recommends, and if it was my personal vehicle, I lower it down to 34 pounds, but we're supposed to drive these at the factory specs, and that's what we're doing. And doing so, you get a lot of tire noise, and that's just the way it is. This motor is a 6-cylinder, not a V6, an inline 6, which is supposed to be smoother and quieter. At lower RPM, it definitely is, but when the RPMs get up, the roughness and noise increases. I suspect it has more to the turbo than the engine, but who knows. It's quick enough. Let's do a 0 to 60 run. I didn't bring my stopwatch, hopefully you did. If you're wondering about the real-world fuel economy, 93 miles in mixed commuting with some hard 0 to 60 runs, 16.9 mpg, not bad considering. We're going to take a 100-mile highway test, see what type of fuel economy figures we get. I have to say the stability of this vehicle in crosswinds is excellent, as I would expect with a all-wheel drive, a air suspension, and big wide tires. course, you do get a bit of noise with those big wide tires, but nothing serious, especially on smooth pavement like this. Rough pavement, not as quiet, as I mentioned earlier. I'm also surprised at the lack of wind noise, which is unusual for a boxy-shaped vehicle like this. Very quiet. Very impressive. But I guess that's what we're paying for, right? Well, we're up to 90 miles, and I was getting 25 to the gallon, but passing all these slow pokes, that's eating up a lot of gas. I don't think my figure is going to be pretty good when we're done. We'll see. Regardless of the fuel economy reading I'm going to get when we're done, I have to say this is a far better highway cruiser than what I expected. These giant tires, I figured to be undrivable and very noisy, but not as bad as I expected. Actually, I could go another couple hours and not have a problem. End of the road. Let's pull over and see what the numbers are. There you go, 113 miles, 24.5 mpg. The EPA claim was 22, so I say we did pretty good. Especially considering all the passing I was doing. No complaints from me. So what's my take on this GLE AMG after a week of driving? Well, to be honest, it's not very practical, and yeah, it's outrageously expensive, but hey, if you have the money, you want to step above the common GLE, I think you'll be happy with it. It's a pretty nice ride. And it's a Mercedes. That counts for a bit, right? Now let's close off this video by doing the headlight test and seeing how this vehicle drives in the dark. Holy Toledo, Batman, that's the bat signal. No, I guess not. It's the Mercedes signal you get when you come up to your car in the dark. Now we upset the dog. Guess we'll be doing some night driving here. Let's go do it. So it's dark enough. Let's take a look at these headlights. Now I have them on low beam. And now we jumped up to high beam, far brighter of course. And here's what the taillights look like. Now the emergency flashers. Have them on the mirror as well, I see. Obviously, the flashers are easier to see if you turn off the headlights. Far, far better. Same with the rear. Of course, you want to do that if you're driving on the pavement, but if you pull over, definitely a better situation to have. And when you open the door to get in, the AMG emblem lights up to remind you you're driving an AMG, just in case you forgot. And here's what the rear view camera looks like when you put it in reverse. Nice resolution. In person, the cheap camera I'm holding with my hand doesn't show it as well. As you see, we have lots of interior lighting here. You can change the color if you want by going to the info screen, like so. Now we check multicolor. Go to green. Now we have green, blue, red, take your pick. And I believe this is a 12.5-inch screen. You like navigation maps? Got a nice big one to look at. Lights up pretty good too. And all kinds of cool choices for the gauge cluster. Both left and right. And all the secondary controls light up pretty good. They didn't cheap out on us in that feature. And here's the driver's door. And here's a headlight low beam on a wall 100 feet away. Very bright, good height. Good wide spread, no complaints here. Go to high beam. Definitely strong in the middle, good wide spread again. These are very nice headlights. Considering the cost of this vehicle, I was expecting active headlights. Active headlights meaning the lights turn the same direction as the steering wheel is being turned, which is great for taking corners, but I guess we don't get that here, but that's okay. These are strong enough, pointing in the straight line. No complaints. Overall, I would rate these headlights excellent. And the same goes for the interior lights inside the cabin. First class all the way. Well, I just drove through a dust storm. We got like 20-30 mile per hour winds all over the place, really shaking this vehicle, but with the wide tires and all-wheel drive, the stability is pretty good for an SUV. And these headlights are definitely lighting up the road, even through the dust that I just drove through. You don't see too much right now, so this is a pretty impressive vehicle to drive. Another advantage, the suspension is adjustable, so I'm going to put this in the sport mode to stiffen up the ride a bit, get some better stability on top of what I've already got. That's what we're paying for with this high price tag, right?